Alright, this is a quick little video on our worm farms here at Growers Best Organics. Here's a little bit of instructions. It talks about the temperatures of the red wigglers and the European night crawlers. They like it between 65 and 77 for red wigglers and 59 to 77 for European night crawlers as their preferred temperatures. So it's best to keep these indoors, especially in summer. If you have to keep them outdoors, do not let them be in the sunlight. It'll really roast them. Anyways, these lids come with them with those instructions on them. They also come with a thermometer so that you can stick it in the soil and monitor it to make sure they're not cooking in there or freezing. They can't be frozen either. Something interesting though is the cocoons can survive quite a bit. So if you have cocoons in there and something does happen and your worms die, your cocoons, when the situation is right again, the cocoons will usually hatch. All right, and so every kit comes with this stuff here. We've got the biochar and volcanic minerals. And then we've got the worm grit, the oyster shells, so calcium, 67 minerals, and there's all kinds of good stuff in there. Worms do not have teeth; they have gizzards like chickens or birds, so they need grit to chew their food, and so the grit that we're giving them is a lot of minerals that are great for gardens and all life forms. This here is the worm chow. So they love grain. There's all types of different things in here, including actually more minerals. There's some more trace minerals in here. There's a little bit of some stuff that has 90 different minerals in it. So this is our basic farm. That's all it comes with. There's no drainage holes in the bottom of this one, so you gotta make sure that you do not let there be standing water in this. You can't water it too much, but they do need moisture. Worms breathe through their skin, but they also gotta stay moist to their skin, and they can't dry up. So you gotta keep all of these moist. These ones, the difference with these is they have drains in the bottom, and I'll tell you about those later once we get to those. So this basic kit, it comes with the live worms in it. I'll show you some of these worms. We'll see how many scatter for us. I don't know if you can see those in the video, but there's worms scattering everywhere. You can put a paper towel down in here. Our bedding is 100% organic. These minerals and everything are organic. Obviously this paper towel is not organic, but that helps. So you want to feed on the surface. So the kit comes with this little spoon, and you'll give 1 to 2 scoops of the 2 minerals in the smaller containers, each feeding. And then depending on how many worms you have and how fast they're going through the food, you'll use this scoop. You give them about a half a scoop, just sprinkle it lightly over of the worm chow. And then you also want to give them something sweet or some vegetables. What we do is we add different things and put them in a blender and blend them up so they're nice and small for the worms to be able to eat. But you can put whole avocados, different things in there, and the microbes and the worms will slowly decompose it and they'll eat it. Another thing is fruit flies. You want to make sure that the food is covered up so that you don't have the problem with fruit flies. These bins also have vent holes in the tops, so you can put them on here. You can even stack them if you'd like. These vent holes will still be accessing air, so they'll still work even if they're stacked. So this bin, this is our our harvester bin that you can harvest. Well, either one of these two, you can actually all of them. You can harvest the worm castings. This one you can also harvest worm casting tea. So in the bottom of this bin, there's holes, but those holes, the worms like to sneak out of them if you're not careful. So there's some of this here that is our worm wall filter material. It filters the liquid going through, so it doesn't gum up the holes with little pieces of stuff that's in the bedding or worm castings. And then it also keeps the worms from sneaking out through the holes, especially if there's moisture in the bottom bin. If they start going through that hole, they'll get down in there and they'll say, hey, it's wet, and they'll drop down in there, and then they'll be stuck in the water, and then they'll die because they need to have oxygen. Yeah, unless you have a bubbler going in here, which you're gonna need to do if you're harvesting worm casting tea. So if you're gonna be harvesting worm casting tea, you can take the lid that comes with it and place the lid. You can either leave it in, depending on how much tea you're looking for. But if you're wanting to get a little more tea, you can do this and it'll drain through, and you can put a bubbler, an aeration bubbler, like for a fish tank, fish aquarium. You want to keep that worm casting tea oxygenated. All the microbes in here, healthy microbes, they need oxygen. That's the problem, is if this one, like in this one, if you have standing water, it'll become anaerobic, and those microbes you don't want. They're the ones that start smelling and they're no good. You don't want those. So this one, you do not want standing water, and this is just a basic one just for worms and castings. This one, you can drain the tea through, collect the worms. If you ever harvest everything out of here and need to restart, it comes with the worm wall here. So you'll sprinkle a little bit around the drainage edges, and then you'll mix this with some water, make sure it's nice and moist, and put it in there, and then introduce your worms again. When you're feeding your worms, you want to make sure that you're not giving them too much food. There's a bunch of them there eating. So you want them to consume their food within a couple of days, 2, 3, 4 days, just so it's not getting stinky and everything. But it's good for the worms to get just a little bit hungry once in a while. Keeps them active. When you put it on the surface up here, you can not only view it and monitor your worms and their activity, but also the worms will all gather there together to eat. And while they're eating, they'll breed, and then you'll get more baby worms, cocoons. Which that leads me to this next bin here. This is our breeder bin. The breeder bin comes with some additional, this is similar to worm wall, but it's larger for filtering more water. Again, when you're doing the worm casting tea in either one of these, especially the first time when you pass it through, there's going to be some dust that comes off of this, but that's totally fine. It's full of minerals. If it breaks down finer or the microbes consume it, they'll make it plant available. It's not going to hurt anything. But if you ever need to replace it, there's that. And then this is the breeder bin bedding. The breeder bedding, the worms love to crawl around through, but when they lay their cocoon eggs, they will, when you screen it out, you need to screen it out every 21 days, 20 to 21. You don't want to go over 21 days, because then the cocoons that were laid at the first part of that cycle could start hatching. So to collect all of your cocoons and not have a bunch of baby worms in here also, because if it gets overpopulated, they'll stop breeding and stop having cocoons. So you want them to not be overcrowded so that they will continue to produce more. and you collect those cocoons every 21 days, and you send it through a screen, which this will stop in the screen, and the cocoons will fall through. So this is a special sized bedding, again 100% organic. But this bedding, they like to curl around in. They'll eat some of it, the small pieces, the little fine pieces that are still in there. But they'll mostly go eat the food that you're feeding them up here. You can also use newspaper. This one's got newspaper in it, and we threw a mango in there to give them a little extra. And this one, they consumed all their food a little faster than the other bins the other day, so I gave them a little bit extra. They also love cardboard. If you shred cardboard, they love cardboard. They love this newspaper. This one's obviously not as organic, especially with the cardboard, but the breeder bins will add a little bit more cardboard because they just love it. So I want my breeders to be as happy as possible, so they are breeding as much as possible. When you're wanting organic castings, these are more organic without cardboard. Let's see, what else did I miss? When you want to harvest the tea, the same thing on this one. Another thing, you gotta make sure your water is not chlorinated. Chlorinated water will kill the microbes. So you want to set the water out for a day or so, especially if it's out in the sun, it'll evaporate, the chlorine will evaporate off. Or get some distilled water, or run it through a good filter or something that takes chlorine out. You just don't want the chlorine to kill the microbes that are in here. But yeah, you'll just take a watering can or something, sprinkle the water over. The excess water will not hurt the worms at all. They love water, as long as it's not standing water that doesn't have oxygen in it. They'll drown. They've got to be able to breathe. So if it's the water that has lots of oxygen in it, they're totally fine. They can actually live in it. But the water, you'll send it through here. It'll capture a lot of those microbes and nutrients, especially with all these minerals. Those nutrients and minerals will pass through the castings, pass through the coarse worm wall, and down into the bottom. Again, you're going to want to make sure that this stays aerated. Once it goes through, get an air bubbler. You can stick it through the hole in the lid and keep that bubbling. Or you could even take a pump, a little fountain pump, put it in the bottom there, bring the hose out, and even recirculate it over through your bedding here to get even more out of it. But that'll keep it circulated and oxygenated so that you keep all those microbes happy. When you're making worm casting tea, there's all kinds of things you can do. These are going to have so many minerals in them that the worms have eaten with and broken down, made more available, and along with the microbes, there's going to be lots available in this worm casting tea. You could add a tiny bit more, but you also could add molasses, unsulfured. You want to make sure it's unsulfured molasses. So you could add a little bit of that every once in a while, keep it bubbling, keep it moving, and those microbes will eat the molasses. Will actually multiply even more, so if you keep feeding it, you'll get an even more potent worm casting tea as far as microbes go. Again, every kit comes with those little scoopers, so you can do 1 to 2 scoops. This is a tiny little scooper, but it doesn't take a whole lot. So you can do 1 to 2 scoops of the biochar volcanic mineral mix, or you want to do both of these every time, but 1 to 2 scoops of each. 2 scoops will not hurt them at all. And then a little bit about this bedding. I don't think I went over some of this. This worm wall, I went over that. This is the bedding. It's organic, 100% organic, same as this other stuff. It's just a finer screen, and there's more available for the worms to eat because they love carbon and stuff that's in there. They like a mixed diet, just like we do. We don't want to eat the same thing every day. So this gives them a variety that makes them happy and healthy and passes that health and nutrition on to our plants and then us when we eat the plants out of our garden. Oh yeah, let's see. Another thing that I was going to mention is when you buy these, if you run out of worm chow or grit minerals, any of these, save your tin. These are refillable. So we will, if say if you come in, something's $10 normally, but you bring your tin in, you'll get a discount. You leave us your tin, you take a full one home. We will take the empties and refill them, and then put them back out for everybody. All right, let's see if we'll splice this in. But here's another little. So that's what you'll see on these. Another thing is here in this one, like I was saying, you do not want to have standing water. So you can look down in there. Oh, there's a little red wiggler right there. It's kind of fun. You can see them cruising around, see how they wiggle through the soil. But you do not want to see standing water. You see how it looks like it's wet touching the sides, and then there are all the little air gaps. That's perfect. You want the air gaps for this air circulation in there. You want it wet, nice and moist for them. Let's see if we can. This one I believe is out of food. They're going to be getting food tomorrow, but let's see if we can see some of these guys. Usually I don't dig in here too much, but it's not going to hurt them at all. Look at all those. Yeah, they love this bedding. It's nice and moist in there. They love it and they're happy. You can also put plastic down, like paper bags, or even the bubble wrap. Some people do bubble wrap if you need to try to cover up stuff more to keep fruit flies away. But this seems to work pretty decent as long as you keep the food covered up so the flies can't get to it. Use this and then use this over it. You can use the bubble wrap and then this. Either way. And here's a close-up of the breeder bin. So the large worm wall, they hate that stuff. They don't like to go through it. It's very abrasive and dry, no food in it. They start checking that out and they turn around. They don't like it at all. So this is just full of it in there. And it's got all the drainage holes.